Hello and welcome back to the Inner Sense channel. I'm delighted to introduce Ben Munday to the channel today, who is a body-oriented coach, and we're going to hear from Ben about the range of ways which involve body awareness that Ben uses to help the clients that he works with to achieve more in their careers or in their personal life. So what I really like about the conversation with Ben is that that Ben has a way of really speaking very clearly and precisely about felt bodily sensations and helping people to distinguish between different modes of being and how they can learn to see the relationship between how their body functions and how they may be thinking and operating, as well as an embodied approach. What I like about Ben's coaching style is that it's very much enacting. So he gets people to move and walk around and to practice or rehearse being in different modes as they kind of work through solutions to the goals that they want to achieve. So without further ado, let's speak to Ben. Good morning, Ben. Thank you so much for joining us on the Inner Sense channel.
Thank you very much, Ian. It's great to be here.
And it's been quite a while since we connected via, I think it was Instagram after the Mark Walsh conversation about interoception. So I was really pleased when you reached out, and we've finally got round to having a proper conversation that we can share on the Inner Sense channel. So maybe if we could start with hearing a little bit about your career background and how you ended up working as a body-oriented coach.
Yes, thank you very much. And it's as I said, it's great to be here. And having heard your talk before, when I heard what the topics that you were covering, I instantly thought this is a conversation that I wanted to have. Where did we get to today, and how did we get there? Chronologically, I grew up in a very physical household. I had lots of brothers. We did lots of sport. We were always outside doing stuff. While physical, not very emotional. And but I was always very connected with doing stuff, acting, being in my body. And then I kind of, as you grow older, you do your education, and I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. And I ended up going to fashion school, of all places. I thought it would be fun. I thought fashion school would be really fun, and it was. And I was curious because I liked clothes. I thought there was a wonderful way of communicating who you were. And I got, I did an education. I did a degree in clothing technology around the fit of clothing. How does clothing fit around the body? How does the body move within clothing? And then how does the body communicate through the conduit of apparel, clothing? What is it that we wear, and how do we express ourselves? And at some point, like a lot of people in the industry, you realize that it's not a very nice industry, unfortunately. And there was starting to be some questions around the things that I liked when I was 16, as I was coming into my kind of 30s, mid-30s. I was like, this doesn't really align much with my values. But as I was promoted and starting to manage people, I realized that I really liked working with people. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of evolved into the next thing, which was, okay, well, if I want to let go of fashion, what is it that I want to do? And maybe it's something around people. And so I went into coaching. Something came along at the right time, and I was curious as to how and what made people more resilient, more driven, how people connected to their work and their passion and their vision. And so I did a normal cognitive coaching process with a company called Animas. Very good. And while I was there, one of the exercises that we did was that we got out of our chairs, we moved across the room into a kind of a future pacing, 12 months into the future. And we closed our eyes and we felt and we smelt and we really tapped into the sensations of what our future might look like. And then we slowly take a step back, what happened to happen for that to happen? Okay, take another step back, all the way back. And I said to my trainer, what was that? And she said, oh, that's just future pacing. And I said, no, what is it when you get the body involved in people's process? And she said, oh, that's somatic working. Aha, okay. So I went to do 1 year's somatic coaching training, and that was fascinating. And then that led me on to embodiment, which we'll come on to later, a bit more about how the physical body is involved in the process, about how we can change our physical state. And together, those three, cognitive, brain, somatic kind of feeling and sensing, and then the embodiment of like action and behavior, they kind of come together in this, what I call the trifecta of my body orientated coaching. And that's what I now use today, kind of bringing those three together and working with people in that way, again, helping them move forward with whatever they're dealing with, blocks or wants or wishes or desires. Yes.
That's a lovely summary of your story. And I think that that transition from sort of being drawn to the fashion industry because of the way that people can express themselves through clothing, which is arguably that's an embodied form of expression, to something that's felt inside, the somatic aspect, and thinking about the linking that trifecta. You said that sort of the integration of the cognitive side, the actions that we take in the world, and the somatic sensations. It's a very different way of looking at things than kind of maybe what could be criticized if we're going to criticize the fashion industry or certain aspects of our society, saying we're just looking at just the visual sort of outward appearance of a self or a person, rather than looking at those other dimensions that you've just talked about. So great. So you body oriented coaching, it seems that it differs then from maybe other styles of coaching that are more talk based or cognitive based, or even lots of therapies. I'd say I think there are there's lots of overlap between therapies and coaching and mentoring. Often it's the goal oriented sort of self-improvement aim of them. So what are the kind of main differences of how you work with clients compared to a style of coaching which is mostly cognitive based?
Yes. As you say, to build on what you said, therapy, kind of cognitive coaching, mentoring, very much in the mind, most likely sat in two chairs. We kind of champion the rational mind in Western cultures, and we've forgotten about this meat sack that we live in, or this brain taxi. And connecting the head and the heart, and then the kind of the gut, it's just this kind of overall connecting of the whole system to align really authentically what we are wanting and what we're needing. So therapy and coaching, most likely two people sat in two chairs, discussing cognitively what the problem is, or maybe what the issue is for the coachee, and then through language coming up with kind of cognitive ideas and solutions, steps forward. Now, I start with that. So I'll come into a room with my client and we will talk about, okay, what's going on and what seems to be the current emerging issue for you. What do you want to work on this week? And we'll talk about it. But very quickly, we will access and reflect on the body. So it might be, okay, well, when you talk about this issue, what's going on in your body? What are the sensations that are there? oh, okay, well, I'm tightening up my shoulders, or I'm starting to feel tension in my jaw, or I just feeling this kind of weird twisting feeling in my stomach. Okay, cool. Right, great. Right. We're just bringing a little bit more information in. And this is what we call the somatic part, the kind of feeling into that sensation. And that internal feeling of sensation is interoception. So I know that this is what we're here together for today.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so taking that as another layer of information, there's the cognitive story, then there's the story about what's going on, almost the story behind the story.
Mm-hmm.
And then we may then move into embodiment practices. So with those first two layers, we now have awareness of what's going on. And with that self-awareness and that body awareness, this awareness of sensation, we can say, do we want more of this or do we want less of this? And again, I take this from Mark Walsh, and I think he then borrows it off someone else. We're standing on the shoulders of giants.
Mm-hmm.
Awareness brings choice. And then through the embodiment, we can then say, okay, well, what do we want to do more of? Or do we want to do less of? So if, for example, I'm struggling with a situation with in a relational problem, and I'm starting to get tight and condensed and contracted. Okay, if I reverse that, maybe I don't want this and I want to be different, and I just change my body shape, open up my shoulders, lift up my chest, breathe more into my stomach. Maybe my breathing was much more in my chest. Maybe I try and just soften the muscles around my eyes and soften my jaw. Okay, now it might not solve the problem, but it might mean that you go into that situation feeling differently,
Mm-hmm.
acting differently, feeling differently, then normally gives you different thinking. It's that kind of,
Mm-hmm.
I think we're all aware of the, what do they say? Our thoughts and our feelings impact our actions and our behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a cycle. Our action, our behaviors impact our thoughts and our feelings. So it's just building that. So we have the cognitive layer, we have the somatic layer, and then we have the embodiment layer. And for me, there's a richer, quicker cut through for myself and my clients, and what I observe with my clients. This is why I work in that way, to kind of get to the heart of the problem, understand deeper, and then create those practices to walk away and go, okay, I've got tools and understanding of what's going on.
That's you. What I really love about your style of communication is that you're so precise and clear. So you've really spelled out there that
Thank you.
What you're doing in your coaching is allowing people to access in the moment when they're explaining their current life situation or whatever story it is. It might be something from the past or something they're anticipating is going to happen in the next coming days or weeks. You're bringing them back to their, how does that, entertaining those stories, how does that impact their body in the present moment? What are they feeling in that present moment? And I as I'm hearing you speak and reflecting on the types of coaching and mentoring and therapies that I've heard of in the past, I'm really excited actually to also notice that in the academic world, in the research world, there's more and more conversation around how human bodies, or other mammals and creatures, how this actually, the interoceptive awareness and the felt somatic sensations, how crucial they are actually for survival. So, we're not just talking here about some kind of luxury phenomenon, luxury coaching or something that's just a kind of option for people who've got lots of money. Actually, what we're talking about here is a fundamental way in which living things stay alive and survive. And when you said, that picture I saw of you, that image I saw of your body tightening up versus this opening up, and then thinking about, if you see a creature that's stressed and it's all hunched up compared to a creature that's kind of relishing in the sunlight when it's, everything's abundant around it.
I can just build on
Yep.
that point, if you don't mind me jumping in. Amanda Blake, a wonderful neuroscientist, she talks around humans are emotional and social antennas. We are an organism. We are not a noun. We are a verb. We're a process. Our body is a doing. We're always learning. Our cells are growing and dying and processing, and we're evolving the whole time. So we move into an environment and we feel that environment proprioceptively, exteroceptively, interoceptively, and then react or respond accordingly. When you walk into a room and you can feel if someone's in a bad mood, or you can walk into a room and feel if someone's a good mood. What you mentioned around the mammal part is that before we had communication, these words that we share with each other, these meaning-making conduits, is that we communicated with our body language. Now, there's this I forget how I say this, but the word is the language, and it's not scientifically proven, but this idea that communication is only 7% of words are only 7% of communication. So the other 93% are how we talk, the tonality, the speed, the intensity, but also how we're moving in our body, right? And so is that then aligned? So helping people develop that understanding of how they're communicating, how they're being in a room, how even unconsciously they're communicating to somebody else is really important. And as humans, and I'll just finish here, as humans, we have an additional gift that we can be conscious of it. Now, a cat, when they walk into a room, or a dog that walks in a room, they can't think, oh, how should I be? They just do, and they respond and they react. But as humans, we have an incredibly beautiful cognitive ability to be conscious of the way that we're doing. So how do I want to be with my children? How do I want to be when I lead people? How do I want to be when I have a difficult conversation with my partner? Do I want to be angry and shout in argument? Or can I become aware of what I'm sensing inside, change my body position to be more open, and foster healthier communication with that person that might be more beneficial than me just screaming at her and she screams at me and I scream, and then it becomes kind of a mess. We have that ability. So we have these tools as humans. We're incredibly well evolved, and I hope I want to help people embrace the full richness and complexity that they have at their fingertips. That's the wrong term. Under their whole eyes, body, around that they live in.
Yeah, amazing. And one thing I just want to sort of maybe clarify, or if in case people are thinking that this is just about anger management, which can, there's nothing wrong with the idea of managing our anger, but it can be seen as telling people they're wrong to feel angry or wrong to feel, frustrated, or these idea that there's such thing as a good or a bad emotion. But what I think you're saying is that we can, once we learn the richness of our embodied sensations, then we can start to make choices, and it's not necessarily repressing emotions or repressing the way we feel. It's trying to find helpful ways of feeling, or even communicate, even sharing how we feel inside. So my experience of improving the way that I sense and interpret bodily sensations is that it's actually quite a lot of work to do it on myself. But then when you add another person in, and you use the example of a partner, for example, or someone emotionally close to you, then it gets even more complex, because the way that I've learned to describe and explain my bodily sensations might be very different to the way that the other person has. So then you have to kind of almost begin again and find a common language to to kind of work through stuff together. I just want to ask a question about, so, you know, I wanted to distinguish there between, you know, anger management or saying to people that they're wrong to feel the way that they do. But do you have any other kind of common misconceptions about embodiment or body-oriented approaches, things that people who maybe, if they're listening to this and say, oh, it's a load of, you know, woo-woo or anything like that, do you get any common sort of reservations people have?
Yeah, absolutely. I love the word you use, woo-woo, because it's typical. It really is, and that comes up a lot. I would just add to what you said just before, is that no, and I hope people who are listening don't go away thinking that this is about stress or it only helps in this area. All emotions absolutely are neither good nor bad, but they're wonderful messages for us. This is how I'm feeling. Okay, when I understand that and I can develop emotional literacy, I can understand why I might be feeling stressed about this time. Sometimes stress is a great thing. It can be very motivating, but also stress can show us what we care about. Like if something bad goes wrong and we get stressed about it, it's not because we don't care. It's like, actually, that's really great that you do. And so whether it's kind of embracing good emotions or or any emotions, I mean, we tracked that, but just feeling all of them, because emotions are what makes the kind of paint color our day, and to be able to embrace all of them is really powerful and not resist any of them. So yes, misconceptions. I think that yes, people can, again, coming back to this, society is a little bit more rational and we're not really taught how to deal with our emotions at school. Maybe a bit unfair for my dad, but we never really were not taught much about our emotions as kids. And so there was an idea that emotions that we couldn't deal with, we would push away. So helping people learn is always helpful. It's about developing those skills to handle them, because sometimes people could think, okay, well, this work is emotional based, or it's trauma, and I might unpack an emotion which I'm just not ready to deal with. But like all coaching, we don't go anywhere that you don't need or can't go. And within a time together, we create safe spaces to kind of titrate the experience of those emotions to work through them if that's necessary. I think also people have a conception that you need a certain body to do this, that you need to be, people think body oriented coaching. Maybe they're like, oh, there's fitness involved, or are we running around the park? And the answer is no. You can have that. But actually anybody who's got a body, it can work with. It's about helping people just connect in with their body. Again, we can be very distracted in the world, and maybe because we haven't learned how to deal with some of our emotions, we wish to spend less time inwardly looking, because maybe the fear is that if we look inwards, we might find something that we don't want to find, and that level of discomfort pushes people away. And while there is a level sometimes of discomfort of looking inwards and feeling those emotions, like all things through learning, you have to break through, you have to kind of push through and understand and learn. And at the point of understanding and learning, then we get to master it, and it becomes an ally instead of a kind of something against us. It becomes part of who we are. It allows us to kind of enrich.
Yes, yeah. And just picking up on that point about people perhaps being cautious or afraid of what kind of worms you may open up with this type of work. And yeah, of course, there are maybe situations where people do have to be careful, but generally, my experience, from what I've heard from other people and seen with clients and experienced myself, is that usually even if there is some discomfort, actually what you learn in the end is that it wasn't as bad as you thought it was going to be. It's a little bit like that Wizard of Oz, and you think all of the this terrible, scary, big monster is out there, but really it's just a little old man behind with the tinkering around with the machine behind this screen. So what may be inside, actually, once it's exposed and dealt with and opened up, it just gives space for a whole host of more pleasant experiences to come through.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what that kind of learning around the emotions are. And really, if I can just explain what the little man behind the curtain pulling the strings is that our emotions are the things that we feel: stress, worry, concern, joy, jealousy, anticipation, apprehension. That's an emotion. But under each of those, or let's say the way that you construct an emotion is by the bodily sensations, which normally developed or kind of categorized into three areas, which are temperature, hot, cold, chilling, sweaty, clammy, movement, dropping, expanding, vibrating, buzzing, itching, and pressure, hard, soft, gentle, easy, light. Those sensations and this interoceptive part, feeling into those visceral bodily sensations, we then put a positive or negative story on it. So we have a strange feeling in our stomach, and then we add a positive story to it, and it becomes joy, happiness, excitement. Maybe we're seeing a partner or going on a roller coaster. Or we have this strange feeling in our stomach, same sensations, but we add a negative story to it. And then it becomes fear, worry, concern, stress. So helping people build that very simple, what are you feeling right now? What are you sensing? What are you sensing inside your body? What are you interoceptively, as we know, interoception, just being the internal feelings of sensation inside our body. Oh, my stomach is dropping. Oh, it's twisting. Oh, my heart is racing. When we start to unpack those emotions and we pull the curtain back and we just see it's a small man pulling a few strings, it actually disarms the emotion. So learning that and helping clients build that ability, build the understanding, the education, that's incredibly powerful, because then they don't have to be fearful of being stressed or concerned or jealous or anger that they might want to kind of push away and resist. They can really just unpack it and take all the kind of zing out of it and go, that's what it is.
Yeah, lovely. And as you're talking there, it's reminding me of some of the great communication that's been done by Lisa Feldman Barrett on how emotions are made. She, as you probably aware, she's a sort of quite a famous neuroscientist. But what I like is that she acknowledges the role of our body as the reason why we've got a brain, basically. So she sort of said that actually we don't have a brain to kind of think and make poetry and all of these things, which are great, but actually the primary role of the body is to manage the primary role of the brain is to help manage and look after the resources and energy for the body. And she's got this idea of body budgeting, that which is a sort of common phrase term for, in science they call it allostatic regulation, which is how we predict into the future, and how we're sort of always thinking, okay, how do I get myself ready for what's happening next? How do I allocate my body's energy and resources? So it's really helped me to kind of think, okay, that's the purpose. As you said, that's our emotional system is like a guidance system, and it's actually gearing us up for action. Now, what I'd like to move on to is to talk about the difference between sensing something and then interpreting it, because as we did briefly speak a few weeks ago before we set this date for the recording, we spent a little while talking about the difference between sensing and interpreting bodily signals, and I think that's really a useful thing to discuss, because after making that distinction, then we can start to think, okay, if I've developed a pattern of reacting, or my body's anticipating how to budget its resources and act in the world that's not helping me, then maybe I can change those patterns and maybe find another way of helping my body to prepare to act in a different way. So sensing and interpreting. How would you say it's useful for a person's personal growth and development to kind of be aware of the difference between sensing and interpreting?
Okay, I'm gonna open this to both of us, because I'm concerned that I'm not gonna. We obviously brought something up great last time in our flow, and if I miss anything, please do add it. Just in case I don't bring in some key points.
Sure.
Self-awareness. I think the first thing that comes up to me is the sensing and then interpreting. So self-awareness of what's going on internally, sensing into my environment through exteroception, our smelling, our hearing, or our taste, and then how I'm moving through the space. Those three, so interoception, or let's do proprioception, interoception, exteroception, PIE, the pie of presence, presence pie. That self-awareness, for me, allows us to self-regulate. So when I'm experiencing something in the world, good or bad, how is it then impacting my internal experience? And if that's causing an elevation in heart or arousal, that's obviously going to burn more energy. And so how can I kind of change my experience to then self-regulate? So if I become too elevated for the situation, I can use breathing patterns, or I can kind of do body-oriented processes and tools to kind of dysregulate and kind of calm down. And at other times, if I'm needing something a bit more, maybe a bit more energy, a bit more inspiration, a bit more motivation, I can then use body-oriented processes to up my energy. So for me, around this kind of personal growth part, it allows us to hold space for not being so reactive and respond better to any situation that we need. So sensing into, okay, cool, this is what's happening. This is what's happening in my body. Okay, how do I want to sense this, interpret this, and then how do I want to respond in the world? And for me, that's what the kind of connection with personal growth is the ability to deal with different situations better, that we become more attuned to the way that we're being, and then more understanding of how we want things to be. And maybe that's with ourselves, maybe that's with a relationship, maybe that's with a team of people. Maybe it's also then looking towards the future, and how do I need to be in the long term, not just in this present moment.
Yeah, so having those aligning how you currently feel, or moving towards aligning how you feel with any future kind of goals or ambitions for how you want to be acting and how you want to behave in a certain situation. So so I guess sometimes there might be quite a big gap between how people currently feel in certain situations or about certain topics and where they want to be. It can be quite there might be some big blocks. Have you got any nice stories of, obviously you don't want to break client confidentiality, but examples of where people have overcome challenges or reached goals using this body-oriented approach, and how they were able to achieve that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll share with you some of the kind of practices and tools, and then the kind of application and the outcomes. The coaching that I do is very similar to normal coaching, in the sense that people come in and maybe they've got something they want to achieve in the future, but they just don't know how to get there, and they need just more ideas. Well, we have a wonderful process called 4 elements. So we move the body in the 4 different elements, the natural elements. So we've got earth. So we're very low and slow, repetitive. We make everything at 90-degree angles. We talk deep in our voice. What's the structure? How do things need to get done? What's the right way of doing things? And then we might go into water and be a bit more, still low, but a bit more flowy, a bit more easy, a bit more what's creative about this topic? Who can we bring into our network? What can we let go of? And then we might kind of go up into the air and be like, what's a great idea? What is this meant to look like? What's the big picture? Be very up and around and floaty and airy and idealistic. And what's fun about this? And then we might come forward and fire. When does this need to get done? How does it need to get done? Who needs to be there? When is it going to happen? When are you going to do it? Right? Really intense. So by taking on these 4 elements, I was going to say elementary elements, 4 elements, we've just moved in different ways, and it's created new outcomes for my clients. They're like, okay, so now I now know what I need to do, and I need to know why it's creative and who to talk to. I've got some great pictures and visions of what it's going to look like, and I know when, how, who, why, and whatever, right? Boom. So in 1 hour, just by moving in different ways, we've come up with all this new information, which can be difficult if we're just sat in a chair and you say, tell me what you need to do. It's like, my clients have already thought about things too much. I work with very intelligent people. So they've thought about it. They've gone over and over and over. What they need to do is move differently. And the key word there is move differently, because when you move, you open up. And there's all these wonderful experiment research data that you give 2 groups an inanimate object, and you sit one of them in a room and you say, come up with great ideas with this. And you give the same object to another group and you tell them to go for a walk around the park, and they come back with twice as many great new ideas, right? Just by moving, just by interacting with different things, we open up new outcomes. So that's kind of vision and idea creating. One big one I get, because we're big overthinkers, because of our big clever brains, is doubt, self-doubt from all the different voices in our head of judgments and expectations. And all of a sudden we start to overthink, and all of a sudden we start to doubt and lack confidence. Confidence is done by moving people into big, strong, powerful positions, kind of up together, moving into action. So by helping someone stand in a different way, they start to feel more powerful. Okay, cool. They might even be good for like being more visible. Okay, we stand in a very open position. How is this different? And I think also another one which is powerful, which I was using just yesterday, which was boundaries. Again, it's kind of people come in being tired and exhausted and with no energy to do the things that they want to do authentically, because they're kind of submitting to the pulls and the wishes and the whims of everybody else. Okay. Well, what about if we just do boundary pose? And we put all the things that are important inside of our boundary, and when we put all the other things that aren't our business outside of our boundary, and we just say no. So helping people with this process. And what I love about working with the body is that it's really clear, and it cuts through all the multiplicity of voices in our head, because our rational mind has all these kind of, and please don't think I'm saying anything wrong about the rational mind. It's the beautiful thing. It's a whole system, but our body doesn't have the expectations of others, and it doesn't have the thoughts and the feelings and the consistency or the concerns of others. Our brain holds all these different stories. Oh, I should do that, and society says I should be this way. The body goes, I know this is right. This feels right. And forgive me, I've totally lost where we're going. Oh,
that's right. Yeah. That's some of the tools. Yeah.
Helping people, clients kind of, set a boundary or take on positions to make them feel more comfortable. Maybe it's even standing in front of their teams. I do a lot of work in businesses around leadership. And so the kind of embodied leaderships or embodiment for leaderships part is around creating a presence. Okay. So again, not contracted and small in front of my team, but how can I open up, hold a position that allows me to be more open, more accepting of not knowing, of vulnerability. How do I speak clearer? How do I kind of align my physical body? How can I use my, this is what we call the wedge shape. How can I move forward, instruct and help people? Or maybe a bit more, bringing more of a circular shape on, more inclusive, more understanding, more receptive. So again, helping people develop these different ways of being. What are you feeling in your body? I'm feeling a bit more this. Great. Okay. There's no question about it. It's not like, I'm not sure. Does it feel like this? Oh, maybe it feels like, maybe it's, I don't know. It's more like, this is how I feel. Great. Wonderful. So they're some of the things. I hope that's given some ideas.
That's great. I was, as you were speaking then, I was thinking that as well as embodied your coaching, you're also enacting as well, aren't you? So you're helping people rehearse the embodied experience of how they want to behave or how they want to be. I was just trying to remember the 4 E's of cognitive science. It's have you heard of the 4E model? I
have, but I've got lots of models.
I can't quite remember the 4. I know it's embodied, enacted, extended, and whatever. I'll look it up after this. Another E, but I think that what you're describing can be massively helpful for people. And I personally know myself that a lot of if I'm stuck on something by moving around, going for a run or a bike ride, often that's when the ideas come, the way forward. And there's lots of another 2 E's that people talk about. It's much more simpler. We can either be in exploiting mode or exploring mode. The mindset can be on, okay, there's this situation I'm in, I'm going to exploit my resources and options available to me. And it's useful. And I liked your kind of this kind of arrow going forward. Yeah. But it's limited because you're saying, okay, this is what I'm going to do now. Whereas exploration mode is, okay, let's play with all these different options and look for something new.
Which might be much more kind of more open, right? It's more of a kind of an open, what's out there in the environment, the kind of how can I interact with things versus the much more kind of like, okay, moving forward. And some might even call this around the difference between kind of yin, receptive, open, welcoming, versus the more yang, which is kind of penetrating, moving forward, instructing, and again, helping people develop those awarenesses and developing those tools through deliberate practices. So for example, I might have a client that maybe they're not so confident giving presentations. So we will do this. Yes, we'll develop this in the session together, but because the body is habitual, I'll ask my client, their homework will be to stand like this for 30 seconds to 60 seconds every morning for 2 weeks. So they do it before the shower, after the shower, late at night, whatever, developing that felt sense. So interoceptively, they're like, oh, I feel okay being seen. Oh, okay. So that when they do have to stand in front of their team and present the vision of the company or the weekly sales report, no, they don't stand there like this, but their body, yeah, absolutely. Good morning. Their body has that embedded.
Yeah.
There.
And yeah, and sort of we can also go back to the kind of primal reflexive responses people might have in situations where they feel vulnerable or feel like they might be under attack. So if you are presenting a new vision to all of your colleagues or the senior management, then there is that risk that they will throw tomatoes at you or whatever. So which would, one of the sort of worst things that we can, as social creatures, experience is being rejected by our clan or our tribe. And what I'm seeing you do there is to help people find a way of embodying a way to avoid that kind of sort of primal fear. The primal fear would be like, oh my God, I'm about to have rotten tomatoes thrown at me. But actually, they're getting used to being able to embody a more confident pose. Okay.
We might call those red flags.
Red flags.
It's like, okay, someone's giving me a difficult piece of feedback. My red flags are, I can feel my knees locking and I can feel my chest tightening. Building that awareness means that when I feel that, instead of reacting or wanting to hide, I can just be okay with feeling that. Like, I'm not in mortal danger right now, but allowing people to go, I am sensing a tightness in my chest, a grin on my jaw, that want to hunch my shoulders. And what I can do is I can just be with that feeling, let it pass, do grounding, feel my feet on the floor, take a nice deep breath, release my belly, relax my shoulders. And now I can respond better to that difficult piece of feedback. Okay. I hear what you're saying. Thank you for your feedback. I'll take it on. Right. And it's not easy. It's really not easy. It's
not
really
going to happen overnight. It's not, we're not going to be able to be comfortable in things that we've previously felt uncomfortable overnight. It might sort of get a little bit easier each time, but
absolutely. And that's personal growth, isn't it? Personal, professional, whatever. That slow development, however slow it is it Plato that said slow development? Forgive me if I get this wrong. Slow development is better than, slow process is better than no process. Progress. Slow progress is better than, you can edit that bit. Thank you, Ian. Sorry, please.
No, this has been a wonderful conversation, and there are so many other avenues we could go down or could have gone down. I'm aware of the time. We're coming up to an hour. So where do you see your work heading over the next sort of few months or years? And are you maybe let's hear a little bit more about the ways in which you work. What's exciting you?
Yes. Certainly within businesses, I'm excited to do some more work here and develop that. I think there's people become more understanding around the adoption or the development of soft skills in humans, helping managers develop soft skill, relational skills, emotion, self-awareness, emotional regulation. So self-regulation, the ability that teams need to be more, developing physiological and psychological safety within teams. It's all done through relationships. So bringing that into businesses feels really good and wonderful that businesses are starting to be a bit more open about that. I love working with kind of regenerative businesses that understand that we're going from a kind of system as a machine to a more of a sense and respond, the organizations need to be more or flatter hierarchies and more kind of adaptive to the human elements, the human the people in their businesses, right? To kind of be more flexible. And also what you mentioned earlier around the increasing research, data, science done into embodied cognition, because it is definitely an area that has lacked so far. And I think that more stuff is happening in the work that you're doing. Wonderful, right? Let's bring more of that. Let's bring that into the people's awareness, and let's help people, instead of being, some are kind of worried about their body or don't want to access it, help people really embrace their body as a tool and an instrument for living more full lives. And I can't wait to see where we take this in the next 5, 10 plus years. And just dropping in a bomb at the end, which is, I think that global issues, when we're able to sense more into our own bodies, as we're able to feel into our own environment, we will start to make better business decisions, environmental decisions, and hopefully start to feel the impact that we're creating in the world. And hopefully, I'm optimistic, healthier ways of living with globally, society, environment. But that starts with connecting with ourselves and feeling into our own humanness.
Yeah, that's that famous quote of being the change you want to see in the world. And maybe we could go beyond that and say, embody the change you want to see in the world, or enact the change you want to see in the world. And so rather than, because being can be interpreted in many different ways. So being a little bit more precise about how we want to be the change through embodying it and through enacting it and through this process, which involves communication.
Yeah, I mean, embody, absolutely. I'm with you 120%. Embody that.
So where can people find out more about your work?
Thank you, Ian. Through my website. I hope you might add it into the notes below.
Yes,
because it's not a strange spelling, but it's Ben J, which is my middle initial for James. So Ben J Munday, Munday, spelled slightly differently. So benjmunday.com is my website. And I do fun, short videos on Instagram under ben.j.munday. That's my tag there. And that's just a very quick place for me to share helping small tools for people to reconnect with their body. That's really what my message is connect with your body to enrich your experience in life, So coming back to the body is my hashtag that I always use. Coming back to the body, or come back to the body.
I might use that hashtag myself, and I will include those links in the notes for this recording. Yeah. And that just leaves me to thank you very much. And I am very much open to speaking again. And it'd be lovely to, if there's in the future the opportunity comes up to in some way collaborate on this type of embodied training and awareness raising for people. So thanks very much, Ben.
Thank you, Ian. It's been a pleasure.
Please remember to subscribe to the Inner Sense channel for more information about the role of your bodily sensations and tips for using bodily awareness to improve your well-being.